So I know we're going out on a limb here, but for now, we're going to say this is an unidentified extinct animal.
Will you guys believe me if I say that a dinosaur has been found in Canada?
Researchers in Canada may have stumbled across what they are calling a dinosaur mummy, one of the best preserved fossils ever. And this is a photo, a part of what they found here.
A dinosaur so incredibly preserved that it looked like it had simply dozed off yesterday, not millions of years ago.
Scientists may have found direct evidence of a dinosaur that died in the immediate aftermath.
Well, it's true that back in 2011, this discovery was made. But what made it such a game-changer? And how did it send shockwaves through the scientific world? Let's dig in deep to find the answers.
God, look at that. Look, the scales are preserved.
This all started like a normal day for an archaeologist who was just doing his thing with the machines when all of a sudden he hit on a stone, which was not a simple one but a prehistoric rock and soil. And then something strange popped out of the ground. It was not a bone or a fossil, just a weird-looking rock with an odd shimmer. Something about it didn't quite fit with the rest. 1 second, it was just sitting there like any other stone, and the next, it had the power to rewrite everything we thought we knew about dinosaurs. It turned out to be the discovery of a lifetime. Buried beneath the layers of time was a creature so intact, so eerily well-preserved, that scientists were left speechless. This wasn't your typical fossil. This thing still had its armor, its skin, and even traces of pigment. It was preserved not in fragments, not in impressions, but in full three-dimensional form, as if it had simply closed its eyes and drifted off to sleep 110 million years ago. And shockingly, it was a Notosaurus. 18 feet long, it weighed 3,000 pounds of prehistoric power and was covered in tough bony plates and natural body armor. It once wandered Earth during the Cretaceous period, quietly lumbering through ancient landscapes, unaware that it would someday become one of the most hauntingly beautiful fossils ever discovered. Most fossils are crushed flat under the pressure of time, turned into delicate outlines or scattered fragments. But not this one. This was different. This Notosaurus was preserved in a way that felt like time had paused around it. Its scales were still visible. Its keratin armor was still intact. Even its color had survived, dark reddish-brown across the top of its body, fading into a lighter tone underneath. And here's the part that truly stops you in your tracks. The parts of its internal organs were still there, not just on the outside, but on the inside. The secrets it carried within its body, untouched by time, were now offered up to science like a gift from the past. It's not just about bones anymore. This discovery gave researchers something even rarer: context, texture, color, and life. Today, this fossil rests at the Royal Tyrrell Museum in Canada. Well, the story of finding perfectly well-preserved dinosaurs is not still finished, because there is yet more to come. So, when people talk about dinosaurs, the word Sioux tends to pop up like a legend whispered across time. But let's be real. If you've never heard of her, you're missing one of the greatest fossil finds ever uncovered. And no, Sioux's not just another old skeleton buried in the dirt. She's a Tyrannosaurus Rex, yes, but the kind that changes everything you thought you knew about these ancient beasts. She was discovered in 1990. Out in the dry, rugged wilds of western South Dakota, a small fossil hunting team was wrapping up their expedition. They had already uncovered pieces of an Edmontosaurus, and then life threw in a twist as one of the trucks got a flat tire. While the others headed into town to deal with the tire, one explorer stayed behind. Sue Hendrickson. Instead of sitting around, she wandered toward the base of some nearby cliffs. And there, scattered across the ground, were tiny shards of bone. Not much, really. Just enough to stop someone in their tracks. This was the beginning. What Sue found led to the discovery of the most complete Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton ever recorded. About 73% of her bones were intact. That's 250 out of the known 360 T-Rex bones, almost unheard of in paleontology. By sheer volume, Sue was nearly 90% whole. But the story didn't end there. In 1997, she was sold at auction for $8.3 million, the highest ever paid for a fossil at the time, and today, Sue lives at the Field Museum in Chicago. Well, you have seen how these dinosaurs were found in the different states of Canada. So, now, let's uncover how these monsters were preserved and stored. Most people think of dinosaurs as dry bones locked in rock, lifeless leftovers of a vanished world. But now and then, nature leaves us with a different kind of message. Not just bones, but something far more personal. A snapshot in time, held together by water, mud, and luck. The Notosaurus and Sue, the T-Rex, were not just fossils, but survivors of the past, preserved in a way that feels almost deliberate. And oddly enough, it's water that we keep coming back to. Start with the Notosaurus. This wasn't a swimmer, not built for life near rivers or oceans. It was a land-dwelling tank of a creature, heavy and low to the ground. How did it end up fossilized beneath a prehistoric seabed? Well, scientists believe something sudden happened. Maybe a flash flood, maybe a collapsing riverbank, or maybe a desperate run from something bigger and hungrier. Whatever it was, it swept the dinosaur into a river. From there, the current took over. Day by day, the body floated east, gases inside keeping it just buoyant enough to drift. Now, here's where it gets chilling. After about a week in the water, the carcass burst. It sank, landing back first onto the soft seafloor. And when it hit, the mud swallowed it fast. Sediment rushed in and packed around the body like a second skin. No scavengers, no sunlight, no decay, just stillness. Over millions of years, minerals replaced the soft tissues and seeped into the armor, preserving not just bones but textures, skin patterns, scales, even the shape of its body. That level of detail? It should have been lost to time. But somehow, it stayed. And here's the connection that makes it even more fascinating, that the same kind of conditions preserved Sue the T-Rex. Not a river this time, but thick mud and water. After Sue died, her body was quickly buried under layers of silt. That fast burial saved her from scavengers and erosion. Without it, her skeleton could have ended up scattered across the land, bones picked clean, history lost. But instead, nature stepped in like a quiet guardian. A prehistoric time capsule, protecting her for nearly 67 million years. Now, let's zoom out for a second. This strange link between water and preservation? It's not just a dinosaur thing. Long before we had fridges, freezers, or preservatives, humans were already tapping into that idea. Take it back about 11,000 years. Picture a group of hunter-gatherers who just brought down a massive mammoth. The meat is valuable, essential even, but without modern storage, it's a race against time. So, what do? They throw the carcass into nearby ponds and lakes, not randomly, strategically. These weren't just pools of water. They were cold, low in oxygen, and filled with just the right kind of bacteria, conditions that slowed down decomposition. Meat stored in the fall could last until summer. And it wasn't a myth. Early humans buried food underground and sealed it from sunlight and air. Some even used peat bogs. Yes, bogs. As strange as that sounds, it worked. Butter and meat were all buried and kept cool for months. So whether it was a dinosaur sealed in ancient mud or mammoth meat resting at the bottom of a pond, water has always had this eerie ability to preserve the past. It holds stories and secrets, sometimes keeping them for millions of years. Now, apart from these two creatures, there have been more discoveries in which the dinosaurs were found in perfect condition. Sometimes, nature pulls off miracles that feel more like science fiction than real life. Take Dakota, for instance. No, not the place. Though yes, she was found in North Dakota. We're talking about Dakota, the dinosaur. What made her extraordinary wasn't just her bones. It was her skin. Actual fossilized dinosaur skin, so well preserved it still carried the pattern of scales. Think about that. A creature that walked the earth nearly 70 million years ago. And here we are, staring at the remnants of her skin like she just left yesterday. So, how on earth did that happen? Usually, if a dinosaur gets mummified, it's either buried quickly, tucked beneath soil or sediment before scavengers and rot can do their thing, or it dies in a desert-like place where dryness slows everything down. But Dakota's story didn't match either of those classic paths. She lived in a damp, humid environment, the kind of place where you'd expect bugs, bacteria, and predators to show up fast and wipe any trace away. Her body wasn't supposed to last. Yet it did. For years, that mystery had scientists scratching their heads. It didn't add up. But here's where it gets fascinating and a little twisted. Turns out, the very thing that should have destroyed her may have helped preserve her. She became a window into a time we can barely comprehend. But Dakota's not alone. Another ancient being, just as eerie, offers a completely different kind of preservation. Meet Bababe. Now, this wasn't a dinosaur. Bababe was a steppe bison who lived during the Ice Age, roughly 50,000 years ago. He roamed what we now call Alaska, navigating a brutal world of cold winds, snow, and predators lurking in the dark. One of those predators, likely a lion, brought his journey to an end. And that should have been it. Just another animal lost to time. But nature wasn't done. As winter crept in, Bababe's body froze hard, locked in the permafrost like a prehistoric time capsule, untouched by decay, protected by ice. When scientists stumbled on him in the late 1970s, they were stunned. His skin was dry but intact, his muscles resembled beef jerky, and his marrow looked fresh. The next step would be to enshrine him in a museum, right? Well, not exactly. In one of the strangest moves in paleontology history, the lead scientist, Dale Guthrie, did something unforgettable. He took a slice of Bababe's neck, cooked it into a stew, and served it to guests at a dinner party in Alaska. Seriously. They diced it, boiled it with veggies, and turned it into the world's oldest soup. Picture the moment. A steaming pot of meat from a bison that last breathed 50,000 years ago. The room reportedly filled with a bizarre aroma, a mix of steak, wet dirt, and mushrooms. Some people hesitated, forks paused mid-air. Others took the plunge, and no one got sick. Now that's not to say ancient meat is the next food trend, far from it. Most of the time it's repulsive. Over the centuries, fat has broken down and turned into something scientists call adipocere, a waxy, soap-like substance that smells like rot mixed with chemicals. Muscles get mushy, and growing ice crystals shred their fibers. What links Dakota and Bababe isn't just their age or their mystery, it's timing, the kind of perfect, accidental timing that nature rarely offers. The right conditions, the right weather, the right predators, or lack of them. Apart from this, there are some researchers who are drilling deep into glaciers or pulling up ancient ice cores, have literally tasted water that's been sealed off from the world for tens of thousands of years. It's not just hydration, it's like sipping a time machine, a frozen sip of Earth's memory. One professor once joked about dropping a cube of 40,000-year-old ice into their drink. It crackled and fizzed as if history itself was carbonated. Quirky, right? But let's be real, it's also profound. That ice was there before civilization had even figured out farming. But not all old water is pristine. In fact, some of it isn't comforting. Back in 2013, a team of scientists made a discovery deep beneath the surface of Canada, 1.5 miles down. There, tucked away in the rock, was a pocket of water that hadn't seen daylight for around 2.6 billion years. Yes, a billion with a B. It wasn't clear. It wasn't cool. It wasn't even really drinkable. It was salty, syrupy, so thick it clung to the sides of the container like oil. And the taste? Awful. Picture licking a rock dipped in brine. That's about as close as you'll get. Why is it so salty? Because this water wasn't just sitting idle. It had been slowly absorbing minerals from surrounding rocks for billions of years. Iron, sodium, all kinds of ancient residue. When they exposed it to air, it turned orange like rust. And no, nobody poured it into a glass for a celebratory toast. The taste test was purely scientific, just enough to measure how salty it really was. One researcher joked they'd stick with their glacier cubes. Fair choice. But these hidden pockets of water don't just tell us what the Earth used to be like. They sometimes whisper that life was, and still is, clinging to the edges. Deep in South Africa's gold mines, nearly 2 miles below the surface, scientists uncovered ancient water that wasn't just salty or old. It was alive, not with fish or algae, but with tiny, stubborn bacteria. They had been surviving in complete isolation, in darkness, with no sunlight or fresh air, feeding off chemical reactions from the rocks. Who would have thought that the most ancient, cut-off places on Earth could still hold life? But they do. And they remind us that life doesn't give up easily. Fast forward to August of 2010, on a desolate stretch along the Laptov Sea in Siberia. That's when a group of researchers found something that stopped them in their tracks. A woolly mammoth, so perfectly preserved, it looked like she had just lain down for a nap. They named her Yuca. Her body had been caught in the ice for somewhere between 35,000 and 39,000 years. Her legs and torso bore bite marks from ancient predators, as if time had frozen her right in the middle of tragedy. But the part that really caught scientists off guard? Her blood. It was still liquid, still red. Like it had been drawn yesterday. One researcher called it nature's antifreeze. That single drop of blood sparked a firestorm of hope. Could Yuca help bring the mammoth back? This is where science starts sounding like science fiction. The dream isn't cloning, not exactly. It's more like combining mammoth DNA with that of the Asian elephant, their closest living relative. The idea is to create a hybrid, part elephant, part mammoth, built to survive the cold and stomp across the tundra like the Ice Age all over again. But this isn't just about resurrection for curiosity's sake. There's a deeper purpose. There's also the Tasmanian wolf, also known as the thylacine. It wasn't ancient. In fact, the last known one died in captivity in the year 1936. That's within living memory. Grainy black and white footage shows it pacing a cage, unaware it was the last of its kind. Its genome has been recovered from museum specimens, and now there's talk of resurrection. But here's the catch. Even if scientists can recreate its body, they can't bring back the sound it made. No recordings exist. We don't know how it growled, howled, or cried. The body might return, but the spirit, the instincts, the voice may be lost forever. It's a sobering thought. And then there's amber, those golden fossils of the prehistoric world. Think of it like nature's snapshot, freezing life in a flash. A drop of sticky resin falls from a tree, catches an insect mid-flight or leaf mid-fall, then hardens, gets buried, and transforms over millions of years. If everything goes just right, if the drop isn't crushed, eroded, or destroyed by weather, it becomes amber. And inside, a perfectly preserved secret. Scientists today peer into those translucent orbs and see creatures that live alongside dinosaurs. Wings with visible veins, legs mid-step, even evidence of color. It's pure luck that any of it survived. A freak accident multiplied over millennia turned into treasure. Each piece reminds us that sometimes the past doesn't fade away. It hides, waiting for someone to uncover it. Tell about your thoughts in the comments section, and with that, also subscribe to the channel.